Mr. G. Parthasarathy, former diplomat, has given Obama an 8 on 10, US President Obama an 8 on 10 for his speech. Let me go right across the panel. Samir, how much are you giving him?
I think 8 or 10 is a good score, and I would say that he has done his Mann Ki Baat. I don't think he'll have the opportunity in the radio show to say what he did here.
That's an interesting point, because
he has done his Mann Ki Baat.
The Mann Ki Baat has already been recorded.
No,
so we're going to hear it.
But this was the Mann Ki Baat.
This was a Mann Ki Baat. Well
Article 25, religious freedom.
Which he probably could not
have said in the radio show. So for him, this was his Mann Ki Baat.
Interesting. 8 on 10, and he's already given his Mann Ki Baat. Jyoti?
I would actually give him a 9 on 10, because I think what Obama said today, he really had his Martin Luther King moment. He talked about how you cannot be, that the fact of birth, whether you're a Dalit or you're lower caste, or even if you're a woman, should hold you back. And that you have to, and that the environment must determine your own sense of achievement, determination. So, and of course, you know, we've all talked about Article 25, the freedom of religion. But I think he spoke beautifully, and he reiterated to us Indians the values of our constitution, of the Constitution of India, which we are celebrating today.
Casey?
I'll stick to 8 because I thought he started slowly. He was gathered pace very slowly, and then he built it up. I wouldn't call it his best address ever, but certainly it was one of his great speeches.
Because his great speech was the one in Cairo. If you remember, many years ago, he gave that remarkable speech in Cairo.
Because of that.
That's right. That was
because he was seen as having a Muslim father. The US was fighting. So let's not go overboard. But the fact remains that he put a human face on the aspirational India, that Vikas is a human story. He linked Martin Luther to Gandhiji, to India and the US. He conveyed to India that it is not just because the argument has been sold by those aligned with the ruling party. This is all about India because we are attractive today, so Obama's coming here. He says no. Commerce is a very important part. He's done it for a day and a half with the Prime Minister. But India is attractive because it's like us. India needs its values with our values to change the world. Are you willing to be, as he said, not just natural partners, best partners? And we can't be best partners if there are contradictions in your behavior. So before his Ghar Wapsi, I think he really put an arrow through Ghar Wapsi.
And actually, just to add to his point, he also linked, like you said, Ambassador, he also linked Vivekananda to religious freedom.
Yeah, that's right. So he spoke, and he also sent out a message to those who use terror as an instrument to sort of take you down the dark ages, as he put it.
All religions.
So there was a condemnation of all forms of religious extremism in that sense, whether it involves conversion or whether it involves the use of terror. Ajay?
7 on 10.
7 on 10, okay.
By anybody else's standards, it was an 8 to 9. By Obama's standards, it was a 7 on 10. He pressed all the right buttons. He sent the strategic message of the common values between the United States and India, which create a strong sort of partnership. He sent out the messages we put out on Section 25 and so on. But I thought his speech lacked that intensity that, you know, you saw in his speech when he was nominated.
No, also his State of the Union address. A few days ago, State of Union address was an absolutely tour de force. But obviously that was a speech which he'd probably prepared on for more. The stakes were higher. In that sense, this is the end of a long 2.5. So
that's right.
I will probably go with the 7. So
and
two sevens.
And the Prague speech.
Okay, 2 sevens is 4, 2 sevens, 8, 9. Everybody's given, I think, 8, 9, 7s. I think, in general, what we are saying, it's a remarkable speech that he's given. I think the fact is, for a US president to come and speak so openly to an Indian audience, give these it reveals the man. And in a sense, I'm going to ask you about his legacy. How will Obama want to be judged, let's say, in this country? Because in the past, US presidents who've come to India have been judged, Bill Clinton has been seen as someone who was, was the Pied Piper, where, for a while. He was still celebrated. George Bush, seen as the great friend. What did Prime Minister say? We love you, George. India loves you.
I mean, even Manmohan Singh loved him.
Does India love Obama? Does India love Obama, folks? Will India love Obama after this? Will he be seen in the same way that a George Bush is, or George Bush is?
Rajdeep, they say a great power doesn't want to be loved. It wants to be respected. So I think Obama will earn respect with this. Love is a different thing.
Because, George Bush seemed to have that. I remember when he came years later, even for a Hindustan Times summit, the moment Bush came, people seemed to gravitate towards him. He was seen as someone who broken a barrier. Yes,
because there's a certain sort of quality in all of us where we love people depending on how much we think they love us.
That's right.
So I think in that sense, Obama has conveyed that love. George Bush had certainly conveyed that love. So we love them all.
Yeah, but Obama's a very different. He's a more private person. He's a more scholarly person, and I think this speech was that. This speech was he was trying to raise the bar, not get caught in a civil nuclear deal and the minutiae that otherwise you get caught in.
I think you were saying, if you remember when Clinton came in 2000, this was in the wake of American sanctions on India after the Pokhran tests. But Clinton is this sort of, this touchy-feely, this touchy-feely sort of character that he went to Jaipur from Delhi and all these women were around him and he made a huge impression on India.
Yes.
Maybe not on the Foreign Office, but
no,
on
I don't
India.
think so.
I think since then, I think the Indian Foreign Office has been very circumspect about Obama because he was always seen to be this human rights guy who would tell India off, whether on the nuclear deal or on human rights issues in Kashmir and elsewhere. But I think what he's done on this trip, after all, he was the one who told his own foreign policy or nuclear establishment to back off and to come on board and to take India's concerns into account of the civil nuclear liability bill. There was a breakthrough moment there.
Can I get Partha, who seems to have a different view, particularly to Clinton?
I'm towards Clinton's was the worst period. 6 years of Clinton, he did nothing.
You're still haunted by your years in Pakistan. That's
No, sorry.
Yes.
In much earlier, even in Australia, he had only a 2-point agenda. Squeeze us on Kashmir and everything else till we signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. He had just one objective on India till we defied him and got away with it.
That's Clinton. What about Obama?
Obama, I think, did 3 things. One, he did not try to respond to Modi in Madison Square. So he was not trying to be the rock star. Number 2, he was not trying to be George Bush by saying that we love you and you are faultless and perfect and we have this, he developed a framework for a more nuanced, intelligent, articulate relationship with India.
I agree.
And I think that is what he did.
So much more nuanced relationship.
Cerebral,
but perhaps that also shows the evolution of the relationship between the two countries.
Absolutely.
If you look at the time in which Mr. Clinton came, Kashmir was top of the mind. Kargil had just happened a year
He brought it to the top of the mind.
If you look at George Bush, Mr. Bush was determined in a sense. In fact, you've got to give perhaps George Bush more credit than most.
And Dr. Manmohan Singh. I think you have to give Dr. Manmohan Singh a lot of credit.
He turned the tide there. The tide turned there with those two.
Steered the ship in favor of America.
Dr. Manmohan Singh had to challenge the set views of the Congress president and his own party and his coalition
and a minority
partners.
government.
Yes.
And a minority government.
Yes.
And if there's one thing he stood by was getting that nuclear deal through, which everybody, including the ruling dispensation, today celebrates.
And can I say that Dr. Manmohan Singh wagered his own government on the nuclear deal.
Yeah.
And here's another gentleman who I'm personally very fond of, former ambassador to America, Ronan Sen, who I think his achievement and the work that he put in on the Indo-US nuclear deal in 2008, I think we have to sort of tip our hat off to this man.
Let us not forget the Present Ambassador Jaishankar also.
Well, President Ambassador Jaishankar, of course, but that's what diplomats are supposed to do, right? I know.
So let's not go.
Okay. Let's take a break. Let's take a break. Then we'll look at where does this really take the Indo-US relationship? What is the Man Ki Baat that we can now expect from the two leaders? Some are saying that Obama has delivered his Man Ki Baat today. Where does this leave? How will this visit be seen, both in the context of Prime Minister Modi and in the larger context of the Indo-US relationship? Have we arrived now at a tipping point where the relationship can only go up from here? In terms of President Obama's speech, he today has stolen really the headlines with the kind of speech he's given there at the Siri Fort auditorium. But where does that leave the Indo-US relations? Where does it leave Indo-US relations? Where does it leave, importantly, Prime Minister Modi and what he's achieved by bringing in the US President as our Republic Day guest? Has Narendra Modi enhanced his own stature as a statesman by all that he's done? Of course, we wait for the Man Ki Baat on radio, where a few more thoughts will be expressed by the Indian Prime Minister and the US President. But while we give great credit to President Obama, we must give some credit to the Indian Prime Minister as well, because he's also dress sense apart. Which perhaps can be questioned. On other issues, certainly shown the ability to seize the moment.
I think very clearly this visit and what has come out is certainly a plus point for us and therefore for the government.
Yes.
Let us be very clear.
Yes.
The achievement, I think, is we've stopped waffling on the Asia Pacific.
Yes.
We've taken a very clear stand. They have reiterated what they said in Washington on terrorism. And I think what is happening is that as you see a rightward move in our economics, you are seeing a rightward move in foreign policy. This is the reality of that's only to be expected with a BJP government. Now, but what is important, as I see it, is that they are now, bent backwards on the nuclear deal by moving away from what they wanted on safeguards. And I think they have come to realize we cannot deliver to them the Chinese type of deal on climate change. So we will work it out. I am sure once.
But you see this as start of a new.
I certainly see it as the start of a much more productive Indo-US relationship.
So it's not the oscillation, because the worry with Indo-US relations has always been. I mean, let's be honest. After the euphoria that we had with George Bush and Prime Minister Singh, and then of course when Obama came here in 2010, then 2011 to 14, many believed was a period when the relationship went through a dip. Do you see that happening, Samir, or do you believe it is now on a stable course where we can only go up from here?
Rajdeep, I think what was really remarkable was, first of all, I think this is a feather in Prime Minister Modi's hat or headgear, whatever he wears for that particular day. Now, the second is that I think if you were to remove Article 25 and the freedom of religion bit, I think the speeches were very similar and delivered in different styles. But they all spoke, both of them spoke about women empowerment and the role of women. Both of them spoke about education, skilling and the youth. Or both of them spoke about climate and responsibility to the environment. Yes. And both of them spoke about the whole idea of trade and economic robustness in the partnership, that we need to create more opportunity for each other. So I think they were remarkably similar addresses by both of them at different occasions. But there are also the challenges for this government. I think now the Modi government, in the next 8 to 9 months, has to deliver on each one of them. Has to, they'll have to deliver on climate.
That in turn is going to depend on how the economy moves.
How the economy moves. He will have to now, with the budget and outside the budget, he'll have to do some remarkable jugglery in terms of economic framework to create that robustness and growth. He will have to probably moderate some of his party lines, but certainly speak up more about the religious freedom bit. I think he's been silent on that, and perhaps as the Prime Minister, it's time he spoke about it. And I think these are also the areas which he has to work on. In a way, it's a homework. His speech today was the homework.
But I think that it wouldn't be therefore fair for me to say, Ajay, that the two leaders have set the stage for the relationship to mature and move to the next level. Obviously, they also, and the worry, of course, sometimes is the expectations are raised. Every time the two leaders meet, every time the two leaders set the sort of stage, expectations get raised and then something goes wrong. Do you believe that will happen? There will be hiccups, there will be roadblocks, particularly on contentious issues like climate change?
I think you've said it exactly. The nature of the relationship now is such that we will set the stage, we will move forward in a structured manner, we will deal with multiple issues as they come forward. But as far as this visit goes, I find that the euphoria that seems to be surrounding it is not justified by the deliverables. It's justified because of the reason that you just said, because it set the stage for a more mature relationship. But in terms of actual deliverables, let's remember the nuclear issue. It will almost certainly be challenged in court, that 46 liability. We don't know how that will play out. On climate change, yes, India has given some form of commitment that it will be on board on negotiations going forward. And on defense, which was hyped up before the visit as one of the big deliverables, nothing much has really happened except for the signing of the framework agreement. So I would agree with you in saying that it set the stage for negotiations going forward, but the euphoria is a bit inexplicable.
Because you will have specific issues, whether at the WTO, whether in climate change talks, whether when it comes to the civil nuclear deal in this country itself, there will be questions raised, and that's when the relationship will be tested. I mean, someone, an Indian diplomat told me that America needs to be patient with us. The problem is Americans are notoriously impatient. Do you get a sense that America now has realized that with India you'll have to be more patient, or will they give us just this 6 to 8 months for the Modi government to deliver, and if it doesn't deliver on its expectations, then we are back to square one?
You're saying
they understand it.
They understand.
Because there's a sense that the Americans do get impatient.
You see, impatient because they really have 1 year this year, and then the presidential election starts the next year. And I think they feel that because Prime Minister Modi has this majority, he has been winning state after state, he has public opinion, so they would expect quicker delivery. Because if he can't deliver quickly, then really what else is left to get from the Indian political system? But you notice that I think Prime Minister has very cleverly moved some of the rhetoric on some of these issues.
Correct.
On the nuclear issue, very quietly in London, well, what I learn is actually deal was done in London.
That's right.
They said what you were getting in Delhi was messaging to their own camp.
That's right.
The Americans were messaging their own camp that they are negotiating, etc., etc., but the deal had already been done in London. So which means both leaders had already given instructions. On climate change, PM has already, he said, there's no pressure on me, but then he brought in, if you see Swachh Bharat, you see cleaning of rivers. So they're linking up clean energy, climate change with environment. So, you know, it's becoming a holistic approach. And Prime Minister Modi is already marketing it.
Yeah, it was interesting. For example, Prime Minister Modi, when he was asked on climate change, there's pressure on us also.
He said there's future generations pressing me. Very clever. He has the ability to market it because he has a connect with the people of India.
And also he's got a majority. I mean, sometimes we tend to that makes a difference. Let's be clear.
Yeah, also
part of the problem that Dr. Singh had in 2010-11 was that he was struggling to deliver because his government by then and the Prime Minister himself had become a bit of a lame duck.
Secondly, he could never communicate with the people. He would never communicate with the people because the popular leaders were other leaders in the party and he was only governing. One last point.
Yes.
Therefore, what is happening is that slowly Prime Minister is moving some of the public. We are no longer talking of Kyoto's shared but differentiated dialogue. He also Prime Minister. So on many of those, he's already started shifting the goalposts. And it'll be a gradual, calibrated process. But I think President Obama will go away with the impression that here is a leader who will incrementally move India. Not all the way US wants, that's never going to happen, nor can we move US all the way on Pakistan and terrorism and various other things. But this is how mutual accommodation starts.
But you know, from an Indian perspective, I know, I mean the viewer out there will say, what have we got out of this? Because the average viewer wants to know, वो US president ने क्या किया Hafiz Saeed के बारे में? What has happened on Pakistan? Why is the US not willing to put enough pressure on terror? And somewhere that public opinion tends to sometimes derail our political leadership at times. Let's assume tomorrow, God forbid, there's a terror attack in this country, and then we will have, you know, people out there. America needs to rein in terrorists from Pakistan. It's happened in the past, and it's pushed our governments on the defensive. Do you believe it's different now? There's a new maturity has settled in.
God forbid if there is a terrorist attack in our country, Rajdeep, I think the Americans will be the first to tell the Pakistanis or whoever is mounting this terror attack to back off. And remember, Clinton did that to Nawaz Sharif as well in 99 when the Kargil happened. But I think the reason today is different is because it is Narendra Modi who is making it different. We have seen today over the last 2.5 days that Narendra Modi, in my view, I think has moved India much more closely into the US camp. I think India has been multi-aligned for the last few years since the demise of the Soviet Union as a superpower. And I think today, I think that India is much more in the US camp.
Can I just hold you on that? Because Mary Com, one of those icons, get a reaction. Apparently, she spoke earlier on the US president's visit. But sorry, Jyoti, I cut you off.
What I was saying is that I think over the last few years, India has been much more multi-aligned. We've been speaking to various powers like the Russians, the Europeans, the Australians on equal terms, as it were. But this visit has made me quite confident that Narendra Modi has moved India into the US camp much more.
I think it's much
He needs Americans. One second. He's got the Americans to accept India's views on the nuclear deal. He's got the Americans. He's got the Americans to invest. He's got the Americans to invest in India on the Make in India. So don't interrupt me, Partha. I've heard you for the last 2.5 days.
Yes. Go on, quick shot.
And I think that India is much more clearly in the US camp today because we believe that is the Americans who can deliver India to the world, whether it's especially in economic terms.
I want to say one quick response and then we'll end.
The fly past.
Yes.
The fly past was American Poseidon accompanied by the MiGs on aircraft carrier based. American aircraft escorted by Russian.
So what are you trying to suggest?
That he can say anything he wants about Ukraine.
Yes.
It ain't going to change our position on Russia.
There's the July BRICS
But Ukraine
meeting.
is not a litmus test.
There's the BRICS meeting in July.
For them it is.
Partha, there's the BRICS meeting in July, which is just 5-6 months away. So Mr. Modi will be with them there.
Yeah, exactly.
So he is a multi-performer. He will, and that is what you have to do.
So part of the challenge, part of India's challenge is that.
Exactly.
Manage that. You're going to have to manage your relationship with China, which Mr. Modi has invested a fair amount in. You're going to have to invest with Russia and with the United States. So it's not just the US which is engaging multilaterally.
Narendra Modi's heart lies with America just as much.
You're saying Narendra Modi's heart lies with America.
It's very difficult for you or me to know.
And he's
okay,
the Prime
we're going to leave it there.
Exactly.
We are going to leave it there. It's been fascinating talking to you. We'll be back with more tonight at 9 after the Mann Ki Baat for final comments from all our panelists. It's been a pleasure having all of you, Samir Saran, G. Parthasarthi, Jyoti Malhotra, KC Singh, Ajay Shukla, on our special show, Namaste Obama. I think now we should say goodbye. Goodbye. Khuda Hafiz. Ram Ram Obama. See you next year or whenever you're back next. Goodbye.